going to do is get started. We've got our first segment on the program tonight, and that's called Key City Communities. And I would like to welcome our first guest, Kiki Wilson. She is the CEO and founder of OUT40. Hi, Kiki. How are you?
Hi, Rona. I'm well. How are you?
Fantastic. Now I could be seen, which is even better. It's always fun when I'm the voice from beyond.
Someone said in the comments, it was like listening to you on the radio again. I said, oh my God, yes.
Yeah. Well, it's what I do. It's what I do. And I also have a face too. So let's talk to you. That's why I have you here tonight. I'm really excited. You know, we have a lot of magazines and a lot of ways that we showcase Frederick. You might think of Frederick Magazine or SAS Magazine, but you created something that people may not know about. So tell us what OUT40 is.
OUT40 is, we call ourselves Frederick's first urban blog. We're rebranding this year, but that's what we started off as last couple of years. We highlight the streets, the arts, and the people of Frederick. Basically meaning we tell stories. We tell meaningful stories. We cover all walks of life, and we cover the walks of life that aren't really covered in mainstream media or the big media machines of the city. That's why we exist. So, we started off as an online magazine back in 2013. And then technology happened. And then we decided to go with a blog. And now, since we do so many other things, events and Poets Corner and, you know, these type of different avenues, we just label ourselves a media company now.
Well, that's what I wanted to get into about, you know, as I delved into this, I learned that there are so many avenues. Originally, what I knew is that you focused on the arts. Those are the things that I knew about. Poets, rappers, photographers, street artists, graffiti, clothing, everything like that. So tell me how you kind of morphed into some other things, like how you got into doing like this schoolgirl social and things like that. Tell me about that.
So yes, our heart and core is definitely the arts. That will never change. But we are for the people. We speak for the people. We consider ourselves a voice, right? A platform, a community. So how can we not do outreach? You know, that's has to be a pillar, one of our pillars. So things like Schoolgirl Social, which was a back to school event for young girls to come get a makeover, hair, nails, school supplies, snacks. It was a good time. And then we also had a Schools Out block party on in the 40 neighborhood, one of the 40 neighborhoods where kids came and got their face painted and things like that. So we enjoy including community. That's our baseline. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at some of the pictures that are coming up right now, and you've got the spin list, and I've seen that you've had panelists with different musicians. How do you find all these artists? Where do you go? I mean, do you have like somebody that you call and say, get me 6 poets? How does this work?
That's such a good question. So initially, when I first started, I got caught up in the online rabbit holes and word of mouth. Those are my top 2 things. I would just go digging online because a lot of people in Frederick hide indoors, especially the great artists of Frederick. They do not go outside and they don't participate in, you know, the public activities that most people attend. So a lot of people just throw their magic online and just wait to see if anyone notices. And I was the person that noticed. So I went searching. But at that time I started it, I already knew quite a few people involved in the arts community. I consider myself a poet. So I was familiar with, you know, other artists and of different genres. And I use that as a base to start. But once I got started, these days, I'm thankful and grateful to be a safe space where people feel, you know, comfortable to share story ideas or what they've accomplished or their business ventures or things like that with me. And we post it for you. So these days it's all 3. It's people come to me, word of mouth, and still those rabbit holes. All
right. So I know that this is your baby. I can't ask you to choose your favorite child, but maybe there's one part that you like more than the other. I mean, is it the writing? Is it the photography? Is it the music? Is it what's one of the parts that really hits your heart that you love so much, what you're really invested in?
I'm invested in, that's a great question. Jeez. Poets Corner. Poets Corner features local poets in the city and county. And we throw Poets Corner open mic nights. We used to before COVID, BC. And at Capitol Crave on 40, I made sure to choose a 40 venue always to support community, the community out there. So, as you can see, there's a clip playing from the infamous Great Scott. He's an amazing poet. We have people come from West Virginia, Baltimore, that and writing is. I like to whisper that I'm a writer. I don't like to say it too loudly, but
why not? Wait, why not?
Well, writing is one of those things where you think you're good at it, but you're actually terrible. Like you're just terrible until someone tells you you're good. Like it's one of those things.
Okay, I'm telling you, you're a good writer. Now you can let go of that. You're a good writer.
I love the writing portion. My supporters and readers and followers, they love the music portion. That's the most popular. And I'm glad that portion exists as well. Dealing with rappers is a task. So they're big babies and they want things their way.
Okay. Well, what is the one thing that you would say you started in 2013. Anyway, that's a long time. And I want to know what you've learned in putting Out 40 together. Was it that you had a knack for organizing, or that what strengths did you find in this whole thing as you've created this media?
I think my ability to network and bring people together in a common space for a common goal. That's been my most accomplished feat. That's what people go to me for. They use me as a network to reach other people. And I love that. That's what Out 40 is for. We're a platform, for an actual community to be a part of and to find what you're looking for and to explore and to, connect and things like that. So,
well, what I like about it, like I said in the beginning, is it's something that a lot of people don't know about. And one of the things that popped up here that we have a slide of is somebody that has on a shirt that says, "I am Frederick too." What is that about?
Yeah.
What is that?
So I Am Frederick too is a recent venture. It's been in the works for a couple of years, but it's a steady progression of different faces of Frederick stating that they belong here too, basically. And it's a direct response to the lack of diversity and inclusion in the city, especially where it counts, the arts and things like that. So it's supposed to be a photo exhibition as we slowly collect different faces and we compile them and create this magnificent presentation. And my goal is to at least get 100 faces. So anyone who's who's watching, if you would like to be a part of that, please contact Out 40 at any time and we will get you a photo shoot.
Get this, I have it on good authority. The mayor is watching us. So maybe we could get him in an I'm Frederick 2 shirt and we can get everybody watching and have a big collective. I'm all for it. So let's use those resources. Let's do it.
That's excellent.
You like it? You like it? So now, have you moved anything over to Zoom? Are you doing, I don't know if Poets Corner can be done on Zoom. Have you done some of that during the pandemic?
So yeah, we have done a couple poetry informal, we have a Poets Corner writing group and we have met on Zoom, but nothing publicly. I'm a little on the edge about that, but I'm working on, creating more fun digital spaces and trying to engage my community more. It's been a task for everyone, I'm sure. So I'm just thinking of new ideas. Yeah.
Well, you're on this, and this is a great way to engage with other people that might not know about Out 40. And I think that's wonderful. Before I start to, move things into the wrap up phase, I want to know what's coming up next. And I want you to tell people how to get in touch with you, how to find out more about Out 40 and see what you've been doing for all these years.
Yes, please visit our site at out40.com or follow us on Instagram or Facebook, Out 40 Media on Instagram, Out 40 on Facebook to keep up with what we're doing. We have a Juneteenth event coming up that we're really, really looking forward to, June 19th, and that will be in person, socially distanced, safe, downtown. We also are working on finding more poets. So if you are interested in being featured in Poets Corner, please contact us. And we're just trying to keep the content flowing and keep, going. So if you have a story, if you know someone of excellence, we have different places where you can call it home. Storytellers Anonymous is where we take different things and different stories and we tell it from our point of view. We've broke a lot of stories that way. Poets Corner, the Spin List. If you're an artist, please reach out. We're always looking for new content, new music. It is our goal to continually just let people know what Frederick is made of. And I think we've been doing okay so far, but there's still a lot of faces and places that need to be exposed, that deserve the limelight and so that's my goal. It's definitely 2021 and 2022 is to dive headfirst into more storytelling, more faces, more, different perspectives, and
I love that.
Well.
Well, I love that. I think that's a great way to have people know more about the various stories of Frederick. How did you end up here? Did you grow up here? What do you love about Frederick? How do you express being a Frederictonian? All of those things are so important. And I appreciate you shining a light on that. And I appreciate you coming on the very first edition of Loving Frederick. This is big. So thank you.
Huge. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Don't go anywhere because we've got a Q&A section now and Steven's up on the screen. So I'm thinking he's probably got some things that he's seen in the chat. I've been staring at the camera, so I can't see the chat right now. But Steven, what do we have?
Well, my favorites are Stitch Early. Definitely check his music out. He is more of a neo soul type rapper. I love Ahzay. Ahzay. He is someone I've seen grow over the years musically. I love
I hope if you invited them to watch, you say their names.
That's so true. And I'm thinking right now.
You blanking out? Should I give you some names to help out? Maybe some people that you've done the rappers spin, the rappers round corner, whatever with.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it's so funny because I released a top 40 rappers in Frederick list some time ago. And that caused some divisiveness, some competition. So,
I see.
All in good fun, but it was excellent. There's a young rapper named Sturge, Sturge. He reminds me of someone famous. Like he should be. And that's the thing about Frederick is that we have real talent here.
That's great.
Real talent that needs to be heard. And, so those are my top three. Oh gosh.
That's okay.
Those are my top three.
But we put you on the spot. We put you on the spot. Are there some other questions, Steven?
Yeah, my favorite Frederick poet her name is Miss Tawana Mumford. She always comes to Poets Corner, and you can catch one of her clips on my the OUT40 YouTube channel. Just look up OUT40, it pops right up. She has a poem about her father that she often gets emotional when she performs, but she's so moving and she's so evocative and she's so she's just amazing. She is one of my favorites, definitely, if not my favorite. And I discovered her through another poet. Another poet. And she was very shy, Miss Tawana. She's a very shy individual, and that's what I love most is seeing shy artists take that leap and take that chance. I'm queen. Anyone who's worked with me and I do a lot of interviews and things like that with rappers and artists and things like that. But I love pulling people out of their shell. I enjoy making people feel comfortable and things like that. So that's one of my biggest enjoyments out of this.
Ah, okay. And well, that's good for what you do, because then you can get them into your blog, get the best sides of them with all of the art that they're putting out there, which is really wonderful. Stephen, do we have time for another question, or are we about done? Okay. Thanks, Tab.
Definitely on Facebook or do the out40.com website. That's where all the merch is and all the events we posted. So if you're on Facebook, feel free to follow or like the page, OUT40, and you will be updated.
All right. Wonderful. Kiki Wilson, CEO and founder of OUT40 Media. Thank you very much for joining us in Loving Frederick. We love that you're here. We love what you're doing. And I'm so grateful that you could join us.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, Kiki. And what we will do now is we will get a little bit about what people love about Frederick.
Hi, I'm Wilson Seltzer, and I'm with the Maryland Ensemble Theater, and today we will be talking with people of the Frederick community and asking them what they love about Frederick. What do you love about Frederick?
Everybody here is so nice, has a great, loving community. It's changed so much, but it's also remained, like, it has that, like, charm about it. Everybody's so nice. Yeah, it's just really great. The place is clean. There's lots of resources, the libraries, the parks. It's a great place to be.
Being from a small town, I fell in love with the city of Frederick because of just how vibrant the arts community is down there and how much opportunity there is to get involved.
Hi, I'm Penny, and my favorite thing about Frederick is the parks.
One of the things I love about Frederick is now I live at Lake Linganore. Oh yeah.
I love Frederick because it has great historic and agricultural heritage, from the Great Frederick Fair to historic walking tours to fantastic venues for entertainment.
Hi, I'm Marielle, and Carroll Creek is my favorite part about downtown Frederick because I love all the sculptures and the fish.
What do you love about Frederick?
Oh, the beautiful water, just the walkway here, everybody out and about, the beautiful shops, the people.
Everybody's really kind and nice, and the shop owners, most of them are like local, and so you want to support that, the local businesses, and you find a lot of unique items here, things you can't really find anywhere else. You can find here.
And we've been friends for over 30 years, almost 40 years, and we meet here because it's like halfway for all of us.
Yeah. It is beautiful.
We would like to live here.
Come to Frederick, you won't regret it.
Come to Frederick.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Katie. I am an art teacher here in Frederick. I am a potter also and a theater person as well. So I'm here today to talk to you about Frederick art stuff. My favorite thing about Frederick is that there's art everywhere, like legitimately everywhere. You turn down a street corner, you might see a tiny bird painting on something. Somebody might have come through and put hearts on the parking meters. You look down at the brickwork and it's beautiful. You look up at the buildings and you see what they used to be. Like sometimes they've tiled in like the hamburger building or the names of the companies that owned the buildings like 100 years ago. And it's amazing. They mosaicked an entire building up on North Market. I'm sorry, the entire side of a building, but still it's a tall order. There are these huge paintings and small paintings. There's light graffiti and stickers and magnets everywhere. There's always something for you to see, and it's brilliant.
I have the opportunity to buy my family Christmas presents, Mother's Day gifts, something so specific from the heart of someone who, it's not manufactured, it's something they poured their soul into because they were looking at a Frederick flower. They were looking at the creek and walking along it, painting the water lilies. I can tell that every time I see the art of one of the shops and galleries of downtown Frederick. And that's something that is so special to my heart. And seeing everybody gather for First Saturday is something that will never get old.
Good evening. I'm Jeremy Myers, a company member with Met. This next segment, Historic Frederick, focuses on our community's past and highlights community members who will share some of Frederick's heritage. Tonight, we are joined by Chris Haugh, author of the blog Stories in Stone, and the Community Relations and Historic Preservation Manager for Mount Olivet Cemetery. Chris, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Jeremy, thanks so much for having me.
It's our pleasure. I feel like Mount Olivet is one of those hidden gems of Frederick that's just sort of hiding in plain sight. What can you tell us about Frederick's other city?
Well, Mount Olivet Cemetery is an active working cemetery. Sometimes people think, oh, it's filled up. It's an old one. You can't get buried there anymore. But that is the furthest thing from the truth. We've been burying the dead since the early 1850s. And it's a large cemetery. We have about 100 acres in use and 8 miles of roadway, an eclectic collection of monuments, the largest mausoleum complex in Western Maryland, and offer a variety of products and services. But really the main gist of it is to help our neighbors and Frederick residents in need who have lost a loved one or if they're planning for their future. So that's what we do over there.
Wonderful. No, I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a diehard tombstone tourist, if you will, but I am a very frequent visitor to Mount Olivet. I'm there 3 to 5 times a week to run. It's just such a beautiful place, and it really feels like a park. But Chris, be honest with me, is it weird that I like to exercise in the cemetery, or do you get a lot of visitors coming in just to enjoy the scenery out there?
Not at all, not at all. It's a very safe place, and with its roots really kind of going back, it is really great to see people riding bikes, walking, as long as it's reverent recreation. We are very happy to host folks, and we saw a lot of people, especially last year, this time during COVID with the quarantine. A lot of people came to Mount Olivet for the first time, don't have any relatives or friends buried in the cemetery, but we welcome them to come in and reverently recreate. But really, that goes back to really our forefathers and earlier residents of Frederick, and back to the 1850s when the cemetery was formed. It was part of the rural or garden cemetery movement. This is pretty progressive for a little town like Frederick to follow the lead of the larger cities, especially larger cities of the Northeast. The first of these rural or garden cemeteries was Mount Auburn Cemetery in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And it really kind of answered a problem that was happening in Boston, Cambridge being on the outskirts of Boston, where a lot of these old colonial cemeteries, as you had growth in these cities, these old worship centers were filling up because their role was not only to help with religion, but to also educate. These were our first schools, but these were also our first burial grounds, these church graveyards. And that was no different with Frederick, that of course was founded in 1745, Frederick City, and the multiple congregations we had downtown, from Protestant Episcopal to Lutheran, German Reformed, Methodist, Presbyterian. That 100 years fast forward from that time into the 1840s, 1850s, Frederick had grown by leaps and bounds. We had the National Road, the railroad, the canal, and these worship centers had kind of outgrown their space, needed more space, needed to build additions, but they were landlocked by graves. So they needed to figure out a solution for that, and it was great coordination and working together where the 7 congregations of town came together, everybody except for the Catholics, because they wanted to have consecrated ground, but they came together and started a cemetery corporation. And they also decided rural, the term rural, people are getting wise to, we shouldn't bury the dead, especially when we have these epidemics like diphtheria and typhoid and all this. Maybe we shouldn't bury people in Center City. So they bought land far south of the city, way past the barracks back in those days. And they were able to sell. They formed a stock company in 1852, sold stock, and they were able to purchase 30 acres. They went one step further, hired a rural architect from Baltimore, a fellow named James Belden, and they laid out this garden cemetery. And this was the same design used in these larger cities like Mount Auburn, Laurel Hill in Philadelphia, and others. And where these cemeteries, they had tree-lined avenues, water features, special plantings, even exotic plantings. We had a banana tree, which was all the rage at the turn of the century, from the 1800s to the 1900s. Ferns, palms that could be wintered in greenhouses. So these places, they were getting away from the old Puritan fire and brimstone, meet your maker in the graveyard, the Puritan graveyard style, to more of this transcendentalism. Kind of this ashes to ashes communing with nature. And again, very progressive for Frederick. But at the same time, we had the Victorian era, and you had monuments going from small monuments with skull and crossbones on them from the colonial period, like you'll see in Williamsburg and other cemeteries, or graveyards, I should say, to even these beautiful monuments with a lot of iconography, angels, and columns, Roman columns, all depicting having meetings, whether they were biblical meetings or other meetings from transcendentalism. So again, we've got something really special, and that is a great groundwork for the Cemetery Beautiful, as you called it, or Frederick's Other City, and a great place to recreate and, I guess, to spend eternity.
Well, you really do see the beauty in the grounds today still. Chris, when we met recently, you used this phrase that I just loved. You said that the cemetery is a mirror on Frederick's past. How so?
Yes, indeed. It's a mirror on Frederick's past, and it's also a museum without walls. Because when you walk through the cemetery, and I heard with Katie's segment there, she talked about some of the named buildings downtown, the Hamburger Building, the Hendrickson Building, but whether it's building names, whether it's street names, Mater Avenue, some of these people that these streets and buildings were named for, former business owners, politicians, physicians, many of them, their eternal home there is at Mount Olivet. And that's why I guess, you really can walk through Mount Olivet and really get a sense this was Frederick's past, or these were the folks that gave us the beautiful Frederick that we have today. And I say again, that museum without walls, back in the day, we didn't have Baker Park. And of course, the namesake of Baker Park, Joseph Baker, is buried in Mount Olivet, but we didn't have Baker Park in the 1800s. We didn't have places like the Historical Society or the National Museum of Civil War Medicine. People came to Mount Olivet for that park and recreation, for the history. It was almost the art museum of Frederick. A lot of folks weren't ever going to get to New York City. We're never going to get to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, but they could see these large monuments going up. And especially when you had competing families, maybe of stature in town, who's going to put up the bigger, most grandiose monument? And have you seen that monument in Mount Olivet? So again, it really served multiple purposes to the community as well. And people also back in the day came and communed, and it was nothing for people to bring picnic lunches and have a lunch with loved ones there.
I don't feel so bad then for going on my jogs over there then. Chris, could you tell us quickly about some of the programs and efforts dedicated specifically to the veteran residents over at Mount Olivet?
Yeah, indeed. We're a third pillar there of our themes, patriotism, and really that's symbolic of all of Frederick. And just like Walmart has its greeter, our front gate greeter happens to be the guy who wrote the Star Spangled Banner, our national anthem, so that can't hurt. But we've got over 4,000 veterans buried there, connected to every conflict in our country's history, from French and Indian War, Revolutionary War, Civil War, all the way through the World Wars, up through Korea, Vietnam, and the most recent conflicts in the Gulf and other places. So we're steeped in patriotism, and it really is a place we have programming on Memorial Day that we've had for decades with partners such as the American Legion and VFW. We have Veterans Day programming as well, and flag plantings. And for the last 3 years, we've been part of the Wreaths Across America program, that national program that started at Arlington, where wreaths are sponsored. We have a lot of partner groups that do this as a fundraiser. And usually it's that third Saturday in December where we have a program, and we put the wreaths on the graves of veterans. And it's just great to see folks of all ages, young and old, participating not only in the fundraising of providing those wreaths, but placing them themselves. So we're steeped in patriotism, but that's again a mirror on Frederick. Yes, and what we're all about here.
Those are wonderful programs. I want to touch base on your Stories in Stone blog. It's such a great resource. Each piece is such a wonderful little nugget of history and information that you've very lovingly researched. So I just want to give you a chance to highlight a couple of those stories and tell us about any other preservation initiatives that you've undertaken in your role.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, the Stories in Stone has, I've gotten great feedback from that. Been doing that since the fall of 2016, and they live. We put them on our Facebook presence. We roll out the stories each week, normally on the weekend, and then they live on our archives on MountOlivetHistory.com, kind of our sister website to our business website. But doing that, our mission, we have a preservation enhancement fund that we started in 2017. We followed the lead of other historic cemeteries around the country, and our role is to preserve. Our mission is to preserve the historic records, structures, and those gravestones, especially those gravestones of folks that moved away from the area back 100 years ago or less or more, or families that died out. And we want to be stewards of those stones. And again, when you think of death, it's been said that we die two deaths. We have our physical death, and that really leads to needing the cemetery, a funeral in a cemetery, and being inurned or traditionally buried. But the true death is when your name is never said again. Your memory is forgotten. And it doesn't matter if you wrote a Star-Spangled Banner, or if you were a captain of industry or a politician. If you're just a person who lived a life, you're equally important. And this opportunity, this Stories in Stone, was something that a long time ago I had the idea when I used to work for the cable company and did some documentaries on Frederick's history. I had always kind of thought, if these stones could talk, what would they say? Because I was steeped in history for doing history research work. And my head was on a swivel because I'd see these stones, I'd see some familiar names, but all of a sudden I'm thinking, that guy owned a shop. That guy, that lady was, a fashion designer. This person was this person was an artist. And so that's kind of what I've been doing with these blogs, is really kind of limiting myself to about a week of hardcore research, and almost in a way, if you will, not to be, cliche, but kind of bringing these people back to life, but really trying to share their stories with visitors, with the people that read the blog. And it's really, like I said, been a great thing. I've really gotten to know these people, but it really shows you the breadth of greatness of Frederick's past. And I don't know if we really have the time, but I know, some of the stories that have jumped around. These are people that aren't even in the history books, but I know one that I talked to you about, a fellow named Robert Lindsay Downing. Yes. He was the son of an architect, grew up in Washington, D.C. He was he wanted to get in the theater. He didn't want to get in the family business, and he was Shakespearean trained, and he became a great stage actor of the late 1800s. He acted with Edwin Booth and other luminaries of the time, Mary Anderson. And his pivotal role was that of Spartacus the Gladiator, and he would perform this role on over 3,000 stages across the country. I mean, he was big time, really big time. And he actually, in April of 1901, 1902, he actually performed at the City Opera House, at today's Brewers Alley, where Frederick Douglass gave his speech. But this gentleman lived out the end of his life, married a girl from Middletown, and kind of was recluse later in life and lived out his decades. And he has a very modest stone. You never know. And that's the thing. When you look at these stones, you see a birth date, you see a death date, But what does that dash stand for? That's the true body of work.
Yes.
And that's kind
really
of
highlights the in between. And I really appreciate they're fantastic stories. You highlight the lives of so many people in there. And Chris, I pick your brain for hours, but I see that Stephen's back. So I think that means that we have just enough time for maybe a couple questions from the audience. But before we do that, I do want to say that if anyone is interested in getting more involved over at Mount Olivet, please check out Chris's program, the Friends of Mount Olivet program. Really fantastic. And there's more information on the website there. But Stephen, what do you have for us? I bet there's a lot. Mhm.
Well, Lost Laboring Sons is a story unto itself, but in the blogs, a lot of times I try to talk about other cemeteries, the Presbyterian cemetery, the Methodist cemetery, and a lot of people said, "Where the heck were these cemeteries?" They were right in there. There's new buildings on top of it. It was nothing for back in the day to move the bodies from one place to another. And I'll just give you a quick one. Memorial Park, which we know and love with all those war monuments over it, there are still about 200 folks buried beneath the surface that were part of the German Reform burying ground. And they're all underneath, and their stones are with them. So much a story, much like Laboring Sons, the whole story of reburial in Frederick, but it was commonplace.
Fascinating.
No, there are no segregated parks where you would find that in a lot of other cemeteries, but no, it's we have, of course, it's gone chronologically. So when you enter the front gate there, that's the historic part of the cemetery. And as we keep going, a lot of people have never even made it back to the back where my offices and the administrative offices are in this mausoleum building that you see. You can see that from 70, or when you go on to 15 from 70. But we've got folks of all backgrounds, cultures, ethnicities being buried there. So a continuing story there at Mount Olivet. A key or one of the things that helps is a fellow back in the 1960s named Jacob Holdcraft wrote a book called Names in Stone. I kind of cleverly took the name of the blog, helped borrow from that. This guy went around, and it's not a pleasure read for the beach, but back in the 60s, he went to every cemetery in Frederick County and documented the stones at that time, what was actually on the stones. And of course, over time, where a lot of this is eroded, or pollution has clogged it, but that is a big help. But we do have mapping there at the cemetery. We can help you find with our records anybody that you need in there if they are there. And as Jeremy said, with our friends group, there are opportunities to do research, to volunteer, to help clean stones. We have a group that does that. We have safe chemicals, teach you how to do it. And we can make those stones, in some cases, these marble stones that are charcoal gray today from 140 years of pollution, we can make them look as pearly white as the day they went in. And that's been a big part of our preservation enhancement fund.
That's a good question.
Well, there are just so many great ones in there, style-wise and others, and they catch. Sometimes I just see a stone, and that I'm just like, who the heck is this person? One guy was he was a 24-year-old, I guess you could call him a playboy. He was very wealthy upbringing. His parents had died, and he and his sister were sent to live with his grandmother, who had some money on East 3rd Street. And he went with a friend, a little sojourn. They were going to go to Cuba for the spring. This is in February 1899, and they left. And unfortunately, he only made it to Georgia, where he passed away of pneumonia at the DeSoto Hotel in Savannah. And his grandmother put on his gravesite a Celtic cross that was made from Tiffany's of New York. And it's a beautiful, elaborate stone. And I had just been pointed a Frederictonian Teresa Matthias Michelle owns one of those large houses on Council Street there. Her grandmother had pointed that out to her as her favorite stone, and she showed it to me. And I asked her, I said, "What's the deal with the guy who's buried here?" And she goes, "I don't know. I just like the stone." But it was amazing researching his background. And of course, I asked her the question, I wonder when they delivered that stone, if it came in that bluish green box that those Tiffany's things come in.
Can you imagine the size of that box and the ribbon?
But so many great ones there. There's so many great ones there, Stephen.
Yeah, Chris, thank you. Thank you so very much. We really appreciate your time and your knowledge. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Jeremy. Thank you.
Yes, and if you find that as fascinating as I do, please take some time, check out the website. That should be in the chat section. Take some time to read through Chris's incredible Stories in Stone blog series, and take an opportunity to go visit Mount Olivet. It's really a lovely place. So coming out of the cemetery and into the Frederick music scene, next we have a song titled "Dead All the Time" by the music group Silent Old Mountains, who are celebrating 10 years of being a band here in the Frederick area. And now, if you look closely, you may notice that parts of the video are filmed in Met's main stage, which of course we all miss dearly, and other parts of the video are filmed all throughout downtown. So please enjoy "Dead All the Time" by Silent Old Mountains.
I see your crooked teeth, brother, mine are the same. I was hoping that'd be enough to keep you from war, but it's not. To keep you from war, but it's not. You need, but need not what you do. Don't forget your rambling days. I miss them at home. I miss them at home. When I did all the time, when I did all the time, though it seems like we found that line, just don't get dead all the time. It was Sunday school that taught us that pride would be our death. Remember that when you're gone, don't get caught red-handed in the garden. Don't get caught red-handed in the garden. I did all the time. When I did all the time, though it seems like we found that line, just don't get dead all the time. I see the future, man. Brother, you are there. Find what you need. Just don't get dead all the time. I see your crooked teeth. It's been like that since we were kids. Blood that runs through my veins. Some would say it's the same in you. Some would say it's the same in you. Dead all the time. We're not dead all the time. Though it seems like we found that night. Just don't get dead all the time. Dead all the time. Dead all the time. Seems like we found that line. Just don't get dead all the time. Just don't get dead all the time. Just don't get dead all the time.
All right. That was Silent Old Mountains and Dead All the Time. Gotta love those guys. Thank you for joining us. Our first Loving Frederick episode. I have to thank all of our guests, Kiki Wilson from OUT40 Media, and of course, Chris Haugh from Mount Olivet Cemetery. I don't know about you, but I learned something in both of those, and I want to know more now. So just imagine, Loving Frederick is going to keep being like that throughout. And I also need to send a big shout out to our ASL interpreters who've done an excellent job tonight. Thank you so much, Victoria Oliar and Jesse Lewis. We very much appreciate you being a part of our program. And thank you for joining us, everybody in the chat, all of your questions. This has been amazing. So you stay tuned because we're going to have another Loving Frederick next week. Thanks and good night.